He didn't know she existed.
I didn't know she existed. Susan found her, and I was just amazed at that. I sure do hope to get to meet her someday. Maybe we could do a movie together.
Yeah. Bootlegging is different than like outright criminality because people have a certain – no, it is. It's obviously technically it's criminal and you end up doing – the police are always looking for you. But there's a certain amount of affection, at least, in Southern society to some degree. And it seems like there's a legend of the bootlegger who ran the back roads and it's kind of romanticized as opposed to just outright criminality.
I enjoyed it. Being up front with you, that was in my lifetime. When I got introduced to the liquor trade with my brother, man, put me in a 54 on some dirt roads and let me roll. And I was disappointed if they didn't chase me. It was.
Now, was it Rome that was dry or Floyd that was dry county, or was it both?
It was all Floyd. It was dry for liquor.
Just liquor
at a certain point. Yeah.
Got it.
Lots of beer joints.
When did that start? Lots of beer joints. But I'm curious when the prohibition on hard liquor started, or was it always that way in Floyd County?
I don't think they ever rolled it back from prohibition.
They didn't. And there's not far from us now, over in Alabama, Fort Payne, Alabama, it's still dry. Last I heard a few years ago, it was still dry over there. So there's a lot of the counties and places that never voted it back in once prohibition ended.
Some are totally dry.
Yeah, totally dry. So I could get back in the liquor trade over there, I bet.
We're going to check in briefly with one of our favorite sponsors, Audible. As you probably know, Audible is a leading provider of premium digital spoken audio information and entertainment on the internet. Their content includes an unmatched selection of audiobooks and other audio products. When you sign up as an Audible listener, you will get book credits and access to short programs now playing in channels every month for a really low monthly fee. You can download your choice and access on your iPhone, Android device, Fire tablet, iPod, or any other MP3 player. Now, I know Undisclosed listeners love audio content. That's why you spend hours listening to our podcast. Well, guess what? You will have access to thousands and thousands of hours worth of content with an incredible selection from every genre imaginable on audible.com. Whether you like classics, fiction, history, romance, and of course mysteries and thrillers, even kids and young adult categories. I listen to books on Audible all the time, in my car, when I'm driving, when I'm trying to put the baby to sleep at night, when I'm cleaning up around the house, when I'm going for a walk or going to the gym. I recently listened to the very new book in one of my favorite series called The Girl Who Takes an Eye for an Eye, and it's from that series, The Girl with the Dragon Tattoo by Stieg Larsson. Now, this title is written by author David Lagerkrantz. He carries on Stieg Larsson's legacy with Elizabeth Salander, the character we all love, the girl with the dragon tattoo, that hacker, that seeker of justice, and she is back with another mystery. It's a story full of suspense and surprises and thrills. You will love it. And you can actually listen to it for free right now because Audible is offering our listeners a free audiobook with a 30-day trial membership. All you have to do is go to audible.com/undisclosed and browse the unmatched selection of audio programs. Download a title free and start listening. It's that easy. Go to audible.com/undisclosed. That's audible.com/undisclosed and get started today.
It is fascinating to meet somebody who's for whom the system has been so cruel. When you got out, obviously you stayed on the straight and narrow, as far as I know,
yeah.
and you met Linda. What was the psychological? Because a lot of people come out of prison and feel like the only opportunities they have are back in crime. What was different for you?
Well, I really didn't want to get back in the game anymore. A lot of the people that I knew that I trusted were dead or in prison. So I didn't even entertain that thought. I just wanted to get a job and try to get a normal life back and really had no desire to get back into it. Now, the type of work I got into was a whole lot different than what I was used to, and it was boring. Boring.
But on the other hand, I talked to you and you're telling me stories and every other one ends with, and he got murdered by this way then. A lot of your peers got murdered.
God, I could name a dozen or so that was killed. And some was killed in car wrecks, some was killed just outright shot. And so that world had pretty well ended. I amazingly survived it.
The game that Mitchum was in was over because they legalized liquor, which I think there's a lot to learn about modern day prohibition, about how things changed in Floyd once they stopped outlawing liquor. Like that section of crime, that way of life of crime went away.
Yeah, that did go away there. It was the people that were still connected out of the liquor trade were in the drug trade, and still pot. I mean, there's a place close to us called Eastham Hill. I don't know if Susan told you anything about that or not, but
the pot plane.
The
All right,
pot
side
plane.
story here.
What is this? Okay, yeah, you're going to have
plane.
to fill me in here.
Someone in not Floyd County, Polk County, one county to the south, had a really great idea. Let's get a giant plane and fill it with pot and fly it into Polk County. So they got what was it? What kind? It was like a DC-4 or something. It was a big plane. It was a really big plane.
That's a lot of pot.
Yeah, and they cleared out like 500 feet or something of like woodlands in the Polk County. And they come in and land it. And of course, everyone sees this damn plane come out of the sky and they think it's crashed. So like, they don't have to get the pot out. They have to land and just like run for it because the police are already there. And they auctioned the plane off, and some guy bought it. But the runway was already too short to land it. They were lucky to land it and not die, but it was way too short to take it off. So he bought the plane in an auction and cleared out like 3,000 feet of forest so he could take off in it.
And flew it away.
Well, okay. So they weren't about thinking things through, apparently. But as you said, it sounds like the bootlegging is basically, it's a choice between, boredom of a regular life or murder. So then I guess taking a swing at the big cargo load of pot is very attractive in that scenario. Now, can I ask, when you met Linda, at some point you had to break it to her that you had been accused of this crime and actually done time for it. How do you say that to somebody?
After about 4 or 5 scotch.
That helps quite a bit. And so you weren't in a dry county for that. See, that's why people need the liquor. It's just to break the news.
That's why they did, Well, yeah, we met at the place I worked. She came in and I asked her out. She was seeing somebody else and turned me down. And
she didn't tell me that part.
I just catch a next and come see her.
Oh, really? Oh, she was okay.
She was seeing another guy at that time and was dating him. And I asked her for a date, and she turned me down. And which, that was one problem I never really had in my life, was getting a date. And sometimes it was get too many dates. But however, we ended up getting reacquainted after they split. She and I started going to the Holiday Inn in the evenings, and she would ride in from her work and would stop there, and we got reacquainted there. And next thing I know, we go on a real date. So, do you know about Bad Moon Rising song?
Yes.
Okay. So I go to pick up Linda, and I got this new Cutlass T-top, man. It's a 1986 brand new one, and I pull up in the yard, and I say, what the hell? Let's pop in the Bad Moon Rising song. So I pull up and pick her up with Bad Moon Rising singing on the thing.
That's not sending out a good message.
Next thing I know,
yeah.
Well, she got a good sense of humor, so I explained the deal to her. But it was the best thing that could ever happen to me, I tell you that. I did start settling down better after we got married. That's when my sister seen that this one was going to take, and she seen it, turned it over to me.
The files.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
No, the reason I was bringing up bootlegging and sort of the culture of bootlegging is that it makes people like you, people who are just trying to make a good living in something that they enjoy, it makes you criminal adjacent and brings people into your lives who are much rougher types. And it seems to me like the lesson of prohibition is just reinforced constantly when something that people use on a daily basis, like alcohol, is criminalized.
It made criminality very much more a spectrum. I mean, someone told me like everyone was a bootlegger. Like it was, everyone did it. Bootleggers were everyone. And once you start down that path, you do get in contact with the much more dangerous and violent elements of the criminal underworld. Because the overlap is there. And Mitchum, you worked with Dink, and I would say Dink was a pretty serious criminal. Not violent, not like that type when you knew him. But he was involved in some pretty big deals. Yeah, he would hijack trucks full of sugar, and then they would sell it out to the bootleggers.
They hijacked boxcars would be parked sitting wherever, and most of that stuff was inside jobs, like all those guns that were stolen out of Alabama.
So it was not just bootlegging, because it's so connected that you couldn't just do one without being in touch with the other.
No, it was bootlegging, and when we got into it really big time was when we started making the Detroit runs. I knew when I did that first Detroit run, and we loaded the liquor in Dayton, Tennessee, and ended up in Detroit. And
yeah, you knew that was a big time.
Toto, we in Kansas no more.
I was wondering why you had to go all the way to Detroit. I mean, there had to be closer places. Was it just the size of the magnitude of how much you were moving that you had to go all the way to Detroit?
Well, the guy that made this connection was from Eastham Hill, and at one time, Eastham Hill was the hub for shipping liquor all over Chicago and Detroit, and they were coming in here in truckloads. They were using tanker trucks. They had trap doors, and they were taking liquor out of here in the hundreds of gallons. And Sammy still had a connection with this guy. He was a black guy, had a beautiful home up there, and had a bar in his basement. But they loved white liquor, good white liquor from down here. And what we got was out of Tennessee. And it was, if you wanted to know if it was good, you pour some out on the ground. And if it burned a blue flame, you got about 180 proof stuff. It was pure stuff, good stuff. And they had a big demand for it up there. So we could take several hundred gallons in a U-Haul truck. My brother ran a U-Haul dealership in Marietta, so we'd take a U-Haul truck, go to Dayton, Tennessee, load up the liquor from the still. Except the first trip, we ended up in a blizzard. And then...
Oops.
But...
Bad timing.
We was sliding all over the place. But when we get in Detroit, this big car pulls up with these black guys, and they have machine guns, shotguns, and they escort us over. Now, this was about the time when riots was happening up there. So they lead us to a warehouse at the Canadian border, and they stand guard. And while we unload the liquor, that was an experience. Sammy sold one of them a pistol, and we went back on a second run, and the guy he sold the pistol to, his wife had killed him with it. So,
oh, God.
John, I got too many stories. I've just got so many.
Yes,
stories.
apparently you do. You do.
You know, and I do get off track. I'm sorry.
Oh, no, that's okay. That's okay. I actually wanted you to tell me a little bit about Tammy Colston. She's become very familiar from our Joey Watkins season, and our listeners, me included, had some issues with how she prosecuted that particular case. But what was she like as a defense attorney?
As a defense attorney, she really didn't do anything.
Did she have many opportunities?
So at that time, what she did do was she went and collected affidavits from family members saying, I'm Grace's sister, Grace's brother, you can examine the body, and tried to do open records requests, trying to get the files from Gary's case, but of course none of them were there. Right.
She did try to do that. If I had it to go over, I would get a different attorney. Does that help?
It's a fair answer. Absolutely. Yeah, and obviously she became a prosecutor very shortly after that. Is that correct?
I told her when she wasn't able to get anything done while she was an attorney, and that was not all her fault, but I did tell her, if you get elected DA, I'll be sitting on your doorsteps when you get there. And I was, and I did. And so we went through that to get the body exhumed. But that happened and I had no clue it was happening when it happened.